Have you ever had a day when everything seemed to fall apart? Maybe you lost an opportunity you had waited for, watched your plans crumble overnight, or faced a disappointment that made you wonder, why is this happening to me? In the heart of the savannah, the lions reign supreme, their presence a testament to the untamed beauty of the wild. But what if the chapter you call a disaster is actually the beginning of your greatest blessing? The truth is, life rarely reveals its purpose immediately. It unfolds slowly, one moment at a time. What feels like a painful ending today may quietly become the doorway to a brighter tomorrow. Today's story is about an ordinary farmer who understood a truth that most people spend their entire lives trying to learn, while others celebrated success too quickly and mourned failure too deeply. He remained calm through every season of life. His wisdom was simple, yet powerful enough to change everyone around him. Stay with me until the very end, because this timeless story may completely change the way you see both success and failure. Many years ago, nestled between rolling green hills and a peaceful river, stood a quiet village named Sundarpur. The village was surrounded by endless fields of wheat, colorful flower gardens, and ancient banyan trees, whose shade sheltered travelers from the hot afternoon sun. Every morning, the villagers woke before sunrise. Roosters crowed across the fields, women fetched water from the village well, children laughed as they chased one another through narrow, dusty paths. Farmers walked toward their land carrying wooden tools across their shoulders, hoping for another good harvest. Life was simple. Nobody dreamed of becoming famous. Nobody chased luxury. Their happiness depended on healthy crops, gentle rains, and peaceful evenings with family. Among these villagers lived a farmer named Raghav. He was neither rich nor poor. His small house was built from clay walls with a roof of dried straw. It wasn't beautiful, but it was always filled with warmth, laughter, and peace. Raghav lived there with his loving wife, Meera, and their only son, Arjun. Arjun was young, hard-working, and respected by everyone in the village. Every day before sunrise, father and son worked together in the fields. They planted seeds together, they harvested together, they repaired fences together. Although they owned very little, they never complained. Their greatest treasure wasn't hidden in gold or jewels. It stood proudly inside a wooden stable beside their home. It was a magnificent black horse named Suraj. Suraj was unlike any horse the villagers had ever seen. His coat shined like polished silk beneath the morning sun. His powerful legs could outrun every horse in nearby villages. His intelligent eyes seemed almost human, as though he understood every word his family spoke. Raghav had raised Suraj since he was only a tiny foal. Over the years, the horse had become more than a helper. He had become part of the family. Whenever Arjun felt tired after a long day's work, Suraj would gently rest his head against the young man's shoulder. Whenever Meera carried heavy baskets from the fields, Suraj patiently helped without hesitation. And every evening, Raghav would brush the horse's coat while quietly thanking God for every blessing they had received. The villagers often admired the beautiful horse. Some offered to buy him. Others simply stood and stared in amazement. But Raghav always smiled politely and changed the subject. To him, some things in life were too valuable to be measured with money. Yet there was something even more remarkable than the horse. It was the farmer himself. No matter what happened, Raghav never allowed success to make him proud or hardship to make him hopeless. If heavy rains destroyed part of his crop, he simply continued working. If the harvest was better than expected, he celebrated quietly, without boasting. Whenever someone asked how he remained so peaceful, he always answered with the same gentle smile. Time has a way of revealing what our eyes cannot see today, so I choose patience over panic, gratitude over complaint, and faith over fear. Some villagers admired his wisdom. Others laughed behind his back. They believed he lacked ambition. They thought he accepted life too easily. Little did they know that the greatest test of his life was about to begin. The news of Suraj's beauty slowly spread far beyond Sundarpur. Travelers spoke of the magnificent black horse wherever they went. Merchants described his strength in crowded marketplaces, and wandering traders claimed they had never seen such a graceful animal. One autumn morning, a wealthy businessman named Viren Malhotra arrived in the village. He owned large farms, expensive horses, and trading caravans that traveled across the kingdom. As soon as he saw Suraj standing beside the stable, he stopped in his tracks. For several moments, he simply stared. The horse was even more magnificent than the stories had described. Viren slowly walked toward Raghav with a warm smile. "My friend," he said, "I have traveled many miles just to see this horse. Now that I have, I want to make you an offer." Curious villagers gathered around them. Raghav remained calm. "What kind of offer?" he asked politely. Viren opened a heavy leather bag. As it touched the ground, the sound of gold coins echoed through the quiet village. Gasps spread through the crowd. "I will give you this entire bag of gold," Viren said. "It is enough to buy fertile land, build a large home, and provide comfort for your family for many years." The villagers whispered excitedly. "No farmer has ever been offered this much money. He'll surely accept. His hard days are finally over." Even Arjun looked surprised. He had never seen so much gold in one place. Raghav looked at the horse, then at his family, and finally back at the merchant. A gentle smile appeared on his face. "I appreciate your generosity," he said, "but Suraj is not something I wish to sell." The crowd fell silent. Viren blinked in disbelief. Perhaps he had not offered enough. He opened another bag filled with even more gold. "I will double my offer." The villagers could hardly believe their eyes. Some quietly begged Raghav to accept. "Think of your future. You may never receive another opportunity like this. You'll regret refusing." But Raghav simply folded his hands respectfully. "Some treasures cannot be measured by wealth," he replied. "This horse has shared our struggles, our victories, and our ordinary days. He is family. I cannot exchange family for gold." For a long moment Viren said nothing. Then he nodded with respect. "I may not understand your decision," he admitted, "but I respect a man who cannot be tempted by money." The merchant gathered his gold, climbed back into his carriage, and slowly disappeared down the dusty road. As soon as he left, the village exploded with gossip. "Raghav has lost his mind. Who refuses a fortune? He could have become the richest man here. His family will remain poor forever." That evening, Arjun sat beside his father outside their home. The sky glowed orange as the sun disappeared behind the hills. "Father," Arjun asked softly, "do you think we made the right choice?" Raghav looked toward the horizon. "The right choice is not always the one that brings the most money," he answered. "Peace of heart is worth more than a house full of gold." Then he quietly added the words Arjun had heard since childhood. "Never rush to call something good or bad. Time has not finished writing today's story." Arjun nodded, although he still wondered what the future would bring. Neither of them knew that before another sunrise, everything was about to change. In the darkness of that very night, the stable door would be left open, and when morning arrived, Suraj would be gone. The first rays of sunlight had barely touched the rooftops of Sundarpur when Arjun walked toward the stable, carrying a bucket of fresh water for Suraj. As he approached, something felt strange. The stable door was wide open. The rope that usually held Suraj had been snapped. His heartbeat quickened. He rushed inside. The stall was empty. "Father!" Arjun shouted. "Suraj is gone!" Raghav and Meera hurried outside. For a moment, all three stood in silence, staring at the empty stable. Arjun immediately searched the nearby fields. He called Suraj's name again and again. There was no answer. Raghav searched along the riverbank. Meera asked neighbors if anyone had seen the horse during the night. Hours passed. The families searched through forests, hills, and dusty village roads. They found hoofprints leading toward the mountains, but after a short distance, the trail disappeared. As the sun began to set, they returned home tired and disappointed. News spread quickly throughout Sundarpur. Soon, villagers gathered outside Raghav's house. Some shook their heads with pity. Others couldn't hide their smug expressions. An elderly man sighed. "We warned you. If you had sold the horse, your family would be living comfortably today." Another villager added, "You lost both the horse and the gold." "What terrible luck!" A third person whispered, "This is what happens when people ignore opportunities." Arjun lowered his head. Every word felt like a sharp knife. He couldn't stop thinking about the merchant's offer. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe his father had made the biggest mistake of his life. That evening, father and son sat quietly beneath an old banyan tree. The wind moved gently through its branches. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, Arjun broke the silence. "Father, everyone says we were foolish. We have lost the most valuable thing we owned. Doesn't this make you sad?" Raghav looked toward the fading sunset. His face remained calm. "My son," he said gently, "of course, losing someone we love brings sadness. But sadness is different from hopelessness." He placed his hand on Arjun's shoulder. "Today we know only one small piece of the story. We do not know why this happened. We do not know what tomorrow will bring. So how can we decide that this is truly a disaster?" Arjun listened quietly. Raghav continued, "Life is like reading one page of a very long book. If you judge the entire story after reading a single page, you will almost certainly be wrong." Then he smiled and spoke the words he had repeated throughout his life. "Be patient. Be grateful. Keep your faith strong. Time always reveals what our eyes cannot see today." Those words settled deep inside Arjun's heart. He still felt pain. He still missed Suraj. But somehow, he also felt a small spark of hope. Days passed. The stable remained empty. The fields felt strangely quiet without the sound of Suraj's hooves. Then, on the seventh morning, just as a thick blanket of mist covered the valley, a distant sound echoed across the fields. Hoofbeats. Not one, not two, but many. Arjun looked toward the hills. His eyes widened. A dark figure was racing toward the village. Behind it, 5 powerful wild horses thundered across the open fields, and leading them all was Suraj. The thunder of hooves echoed across the valley. Villagers rushed out of their homes, shielding their eyes from the rising sun. "What is that?" someone shouted. As the dust settled, everyone gasped. Leading the herd was Suraj. His black coat gleamed in the morning light, and he looked healthier and stronger than ever. Behind him ran 5 magnificent wild horses, powerful, untamed, and unlike any animals the villagers had ever seen. Arjun could hardly believe his eyes. "Father!" he cried with joy. "Suraj has come back!" He ran toward the horse, wrapping his arms around its neck. Suraj gently rubbed his head against Arjun's shoulder as if he had never been away. The villagers stood speechless. Only a week earlier they had pitied Raghav. Now they looked at him with envy. One man laughed nervously. "What incredible luck!" Another exclaimed. "He lost 1 horse and gained 5 more. Even the village elder smiled. "Raghav," he said, "you may now own the finest herd in the entire region." But Raghav simply smiled. He gently stroked Suraj's mane and said in his calm voice, "Whether this is a blessing or another test, only time will tell." The villagers exchanged confused glances. Some shook their heads. "Why can't he simply enjoy his good fortune?" He's impossible to understand. But Raghav wasn't being ungrateful. He simply understood something they didn't. Life had not finished writing the story. Over the next few days, Arjun began caring for the 5 wild horses. They were beautiful, but they were also fierce. Unlike Suraj, they trusted no one. They kicked, bit, and refused to wear ropes. Every morning, Arjun patiently fed them from a distance. Slowly, they began accepting his presence. One afternoon, confidence got the better of him. He looked at one of the strongest stallions and smiled. "I think he's ready." Several villagers gathered to watch. "Be careful," someone warned. Arjun nodded. Slowly, he climbed onto the horse's back. For a brief second, everything seemed fine. Then suddenly, the stallion exploded with wild energy. It reared high into the air. It twisted violently from side to side. Arjun struggled to hold on. The horse bucked again. This time, he was thrown several feet through the air. He crashed onto the hard ground with a painful cry. A loud crack echoed across the field. Silence followed. Meera screamed. Raghav ran as fast as he could. Arjun clutched his right leg in unbearable pain. Within minutes, the village healer arrived. After carefully examining the injury, he looked at Raghav with a serious expression. "The leg is badly broken," he said quietly. "It will take many weeks to heal. And even then," he paused, "your son may never walk exactly as he did before." Meera wiped tears from her face. Arjun closed his eyes in disappointment. Around them, the villagers whispered once again. Those wild horses brought nothing but suffering. What looked like great fortune has become terrible misfortune. Poor Raghav. That evening, Arjun lay on a simple wooden bed. His leg was tightly wrapped with wooden splints. Pain filled every movement. He looked toward his father. His voice trembled. Were they right this time? Was bringing those horses home actually a curse? Raghav pulled up a chair and sat beside him. His face remained peaceful. He gently took his son's hand. "My son," he said softly, "sometimes life gives us gifts wrapped in hardship, and sometimes it hides blessings inside pain. We cannot know which one this is, so we must not judge today." He smiled warmly. "Be patient, be grateful. Keep your faith strong. Time has not yet revealed the purpose behind this moment." Arjun took a slow breath. The pain remained, but somehow his fear became a little smaller. Neither father nor son knew that before another month had passed, a royal army would arrive in Sundarpur, and Arjun's broken leg would become the reason his life was spared. The days passed slowly. Arjun remained inside the house, his injured leg resting on a wooden support. He could hear the sounds of the village outside, the laughter of children, the carts rolling down the dusty road, and the distant calls of farmers working in their fields. Every morning, Raghav and Meera cared for him before going to the farm. Suraj and the 5 wild horses quietly grazed nearby, as if they too were waiting for Arjun to recover. Although the pain in his leg slowly began to ease, he often wondered why life had taken such an unexpected turn. One evening he asked his father, "Do you think I'll ever be as strong as I was before?" Raghav smiled gently. "My son, strength is not measured only by healthy legs. It is measured by the courage to keep moving forward when life changes your plans." Arjun nodded silently. Those words stayed with him. 2 weeks later, just after sunrise, the peaceful silence of Sundarpur was suddenly broken. The sound of loud war drums echoed across the valley. Moments later, the ground began to shake beneath the pounding hooves of dozens of horses. Children stopped playing. Farmers dropped their tools. Women stepped out of their homes with worried faces. A column of royal soldiers rode into the village wearing shining armor. At their head was a commander carrying the king's royal flag. He raised his hand, and the entire village fell silent. In a powerful voice he announced, "By the order of His Majesty," Our kingdom has entered a great war. Every healthy young man of fighting age must immediately join the royal army. No family is exempt. No excuses will be accepted. Fear spread through the crowd. Mothers held their sons tightly. Fathers looked at the ground in silence. Young men exchanged nervous glances. No one wanted to leave, but no one could refuse the king's command. One by one, the soldiers called each young man's name. They were given only a few moments to say goodbye before joining the marching column. Tears filled the village. Some mothers cried openly. Others prayed quietly. The entire village seemed wrapped in sorrow. Finally, the soldiers reached Raghav's home. The commander stepped inside. He found Arjun lying on a simple wooden bed, his injured leg still supported by splints. The commander examined him for only a moment. Then he shook his head. "This young man cannot fight. We have no use for a soldier who cannot march." He turned toward his men. "Leave him." Without another word, the soldiers walked away. Raghav quietly closed the door. Neither he nor Arjun spoke. Outside, the army slowly disappeared beyond the hills. Their drums faded into the distance. The village became silent once again. But it was no longer the peaceful silence of an ordinary morning. It was the silence left behind by fathers who had lost their sons, wives who had lost their husbands, and mothers who no longer knew if they would ever see their children again. Arjun looked at his father with tears in his eyes. "If my leg had never broken, I would have gone with them." Raghav gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Then, with the same calm voice he had always carried, he said, "Now do you understand why we must never judge a single moment before the story is complete?" Arjun slowly nodded. For the first time, he truly began to understand. The injury that had once felt like the greatest tragedy of his life had quietly become the reason he was still alive. Yet neither of them knew. The greatest lesson was still waiting. Months later, when the war finally ended, the entire village would discover the true meaning of patience, faith, and gratitude. The seasons changed. Summer gave way to autumn, and autumn slowly welcomed winter. Months passed without a single letter from the battlefield. Every evening, the people of Sundarpur gathered beneath the old banyan tree, hoping to hear news of their sons, brothers, and husbands. Hope slowly turned into fear. Then, one cold morning, a royal messenger arrived. The entire village rushed toward the town square. The messenger unrolled a scroll bearing the king's seal. His voice was heavy with sorrow. "The war has ended." A wave of relief spread through the crowd, but it lasted only a moment. The messenger continued, "Many brave soldiers gave their lives protecting the kingdom." One by one, he began reading the names of those who would never return. As each name echoed through the village, another family broke into tears. Mothers collapsed into their husbands' arms. Children cried without fully understanding what had happened. The joyful village that once echoed with laughter became silent with grief. When the reading finally ended, only a handful of young men had survived the war. The loss had touched nearly every family. That evening, Raghav and Arjun quietly walked through the village. They saw empty homes, unfinished fields, broken families. For the first time, the villagers looked at Raghav differently. No one called him foolish anymore. No one laughed at his words. Instead, they remembered everything he had said. Never judge too soon. A few weeks later, the surviving soldiers finally returned home. The entire village gathered to welcome them. Some walked with scars. Some carried wounds that would never heal. Others returned with sadness in their eyes after losing their closest friends in battle. Among the crowd stood Arjun. He watched the survivors embrace their families. Then he looked down at the faint scar on his own leg. The injury he had once hated had quietly protected his future. That night, Father and son sat beneath the same banyan tree where they had shared so many conversations. The moon lit the quiet fields. Suraj and the 5 horses grazed peacefully nearby. After a long silence, Arjun spoke. "Father, I finally understand. When Suraj disappeared, I believed everything was lost. When he returned with 5 wild horses, I thought life had rewarded us. When my leg broke, I believed my future had been destroyed. But every event led to the next. If even one thing had happened differently, I might never have been sitting here with you tonight." Raghav smiled. His eyes reflected both wisdom and gratitude. "My son," he said softly, "life is like a tapestry. When you stand too close, all you see are tangled threads. But as time passes, the full design slowly appears. We often ask, why is this happening to me? But sometimes the better question is, what is this moment preparing me for?" He looked toward the stars. The greatest mistake people make is believing they understand everything the moment it happens. They celebrate too quickly. They lose hope too quickly. But life needs time. Only time reveals the true meaning of every chapter. Arjun nodded with tears in his eyes. "I'll remember that for the rest of my life." Raghav placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Then remember one more thing. Never allow success to fill your heart with pride. And never allow hardship to steal your faith. Walk through both with humility, because neither joy nor sorrow stays forever." The wind moved softly through the trees. In that peaceful silence, Arjun realized that his father had given him a treasure far greater than wealth. He had given him wisdom. Moral of the story: how often have we judged our lives too quickly? A lost job, a failed exam, a broken relationship, a missed opportunity. At first, these moments feel like the end. But years later, many of us look back and realize they were actually turning points that led us somewhere better. Life is not one moment, it is thousands of moments connected together. You cannot understand the whole story by reading only one chapter. So the next time life doesn't go according to your plan, pause, take a deep breath, and remind yourself only time reveals the truth. Stay patient, stay grateful, keep your faith strong, because what feels like today's disappointment may become tomorrow's greatest blessing. Thank you for spending these moments with us. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. Has something that once felt like a failure later become one of the greatest blessings in your life? Your story may inspire someone who is struggling today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more meaningful stories that inspire hope, wisdom, and strength. Until next time, take care of yourself, trust the journey, and remember, life's greatest lessons are understood only with time.